We need to meet his demands, now!
Imagine a crime so audacious, so precisely executed, that it remains the only one of its kind in history to go unsolved. It begins not in a shadowy alley, nor in a high-security vault, but thousands of feet above the earth, in the very sky. This is a story that challenges our understanding of human daring, intelligence, and the perfect escape. It's about a man who stepped out of a plane with a fortune in hand and vanished into thin air. Think about a moment of incredible tension. A commercial airliner flying over the vast wilderness, carrying passengers who are suddenly part of a terrifying plot. And then, the central figure of this drama simply opens a door, steps out and disappears. No identity, no body, no trace of the money. This isn't just a thrilling movie plot. It's a real-life cold case, almost 50 years old, that still mystifies the most seasoned investigators. Who was D.B Cooper, and how could a man simply vanish from the sky? The mystery begins with a demand, a plane, and a leap into the unknown. It was the day before Thanksgiving, November 24th, 1971, a time when families across the United States were getting ready for a big holiday. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727, lifted off from Portland, Oregon, heading for Seattle, Washington. On board was a man who had bought his ticket, using the name Dan Cooper. He looked like anyone else. A business suit, a dark tie, a white shirt, and he carried a briefcase. He seemed calm and collected, just another passenger settling in for the short trip. The flight started normally. People chatted, flight attendants served drinks. But as the plane reached its flying height, Dan Cooper calmly gave a folded note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. She thought it was just a lonely businessman giving her his phone number, so she politely put it away. Cooper leaned closer, his voice quiet but firm, insisting she read it. The message was chilling. "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me." Florence, seeing what looked like a device with red sticks and wires inside his open briefcase, immediately understood how serious the situation was. Cooper's demands were clear and exact. $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 main and 2 backup ones, and a fuel truck ready at Seattle. He remained incredibly calm, even polite, throughout, giving very specific instructions as if he was following a script he had practiced many times. News of the hijacking quickly reached the ground. Authorities, facing a unique and unheard-of situation, rushed to get what the hijacker wanted. As the Boeing 727 flew circles above Seattle-Tacoma International Airport for hours, burning fuel, the ransom money and parachutes were gathered. The tension inside the plane was obvious, yet Cooper stayed surprisingly calm, sipping a bourbon and soda. Finally, his demands were met. The plane landed in Seattle. Cooper let the passengers get off, which was a strange move for a hijacker who still had the pilot and some crew members under his control. The money and parachutes were brought onto the plane. The exchange happened without any trouble, but the difficult part was far from over. Cooper now had a new set of instructions, leading to the second, most unusual, and ultimately final part of this extraordinary flight. With the passengers gone, the feeling inside Northwest Orient Flight 305 completely changed. Cooper's last set of instructions were very clear and chilling. He told the plane to take off again, flying south-southeast towards Mexico City, but with some very unusual rules. The landing gear had to stay down, the wing flaps set at 15 degrees, and the plane had to fly below 10,000 feet, going no faster than 200 miles per hour. He then told the flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, to go into the cockpit with the rest of the crew and stay there. This meant Cooper was now alone in the passenger area, getting ready for his incredibly daring escape. It was just after 8 p.m. Outside, the night was dark, stormy, and there was no moon, making it the perfect cover for a man about to do something impossible. He spent his final moments on the plane tying the bags of ransom money to his body, putting on his parachute, and preparing for the cold, dark jump. Somewhere over southwestern Washington, about 30 minutes after taking off from Seattle, the moment came. At around 8:13 p.m., the plane's rear stairs, which Cooper controlled, suddenly lowered. The air pressure inside the cabin would have dropped instantly. With the plane still flying low and slow, D.B Cooper, the man who had outsmarted the FBI and taken over an airplane, simply jumped. He vanished into the cold, stormy darkness of the night sky, taking his identity, the money, and the secret of whether he survived with him. Inside the cockpit, the crew felt the change in air pressure. They knew right away what had happened. They landed the plane safely in Reno, Nevada, but a frantic realization hit them. D.B Cooper was gone. He had pulled off his escape perfectly. The moment he disappeared, the biggest search in U.S. history began. Authorities, shocked by how bold the crime was, immediately launched huge search operations on the ground and from the air, desperate to find any sign of the skyjacker or his parachute. But the huge rough wilderness of the Pacific Northwest swallowed him whole. D.B Cooper had truly disappeared, leaving behind only a legend. The massive search operations went on for weeks, then months, covering thousands of square miles of thick forests, rough mountains, and freezing rivers. The FBI, along with local police and volunteers, searched every tiny bit of the area where they thought he'd jumped. They used helicopters, planes, and teams on the ground, but found nothing. No parachute, no body, no briefcase, no sign of D.B Cooper or his money. It was as if he had simply melted into the wild, leaving almost no trace. The very few clues he left behind only made the mystery deeper. Investigators found just a few cigarette butts on the plane, fingerprints that didn't lead anywhere, and a dark clip-on tie left on his seat. This tie became maybe the most important, yet most frustrating, piece of evidence. It was tested for DNA many years later, but still gave no clear answers about who Cooper was. Years went by, and still nothing. The case became an old, unsolved one, but it was never forgotten. People stayed fascinated. The image of the bold hijacker jumping into the night became a modern legend. The most common idea among investigators was that Cooper, even with all his careful planning, simply did not survive the jump. The conditions were extremely bad. Pitch black darkness, stormy weather, freezing cold, and landing in rough, heavily wooded land with strong winds. Even a skilled skydiver would have faced huge challenges. But without a body, without the money, without any definite proof. That idea stayed just that, an idea. The lack of evidence was, in itself, the most confusing evidence. How could $200,000 in marked bills disappear forever? How could a person vanish so completely from such a huge search? But then, in 1980, 9 years after the skyjacking, a small, amazing discovery was made on a remote beach along the Columbia River. A young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand when he found 3 bundles of $20 bills, very damaged, but with serial numbers that matched the D.B Cooper ransom money. This was the first and only confirmed finding of any of the ransom money. This discovery only added more questions to the mystery. Had the money been buried there by Cooper? Had it washed up from the river? And if it had washed up, what did that mean for Cooper's fate? The discovery proved that Cooper had at least made it to the ground with some of the money, but it created more questions than it answered, making the legend of D.B. Cooper even more lasting. The discovery of the money near the Columbia River only intensified the debate among investigators and the public. If the money washed up from the river, it suggested Cooper might have drowned in the treacherous waters of the Washougal River or the Columbia. But how did it travel so far, remaining buried for so long? The exact location of his jump, even after extensive calculations and tests, has never been definitively confirmed, making the search for clues a near impossible task. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged about D.B. Cooper's true identity and ultimate fate. Was he a seasoned criminal, a disgruntled former military pilot, or just a desperate everyman pushed to an extreme act? Many suspects were investigated, from career criminals to a man who confessed on his deathbed, but none ever provided the concrete evidence needed to close the case. The most persistent theory remains that he died during the jump, a victim of the harsh weather and unforgiving terrain. But how could a body, and the vast majority of the money, disappear so completely? Some theorize he was an expert who vanished into obscurity, living out his life under a new identity, having pulled off the perfect crime. Others believe he was an ambitious amateur who, by sheer luck and calculated audacity, achieved the impossible. The discovery of the money even led some to believe he buried it as a contingency, planning to retrieve it later, only for nature to uncover his secret years later. For 45 years, the FBI kept the D.B. Cooper case an active investigation, meticulously chasing down every lead, analyzing every fragment of evidence, and interviewing thousands of potential suspects. It became one of the most famous and expensive cold cases in history. However, in 2016, with no new credible leads and resource priorities shifting, the FBI officially suspended its active investigation. The case remains open, but is no longer being actively worked on by agents. Today, the skies are more secure, and such a brazen act is almost unimaginable. Yet the story of D.B. Cooper lives on, a testament to an unsolved riddle that continues to captivate. He remains a phantom, a ghost in the annals of criminal history, a nameless face in a business suit who leapt from the edge of the known world and vanished into the night. His identity, his ultimate fate, and the vast sum of money he took with him remain one of history's greatest blank pages. We are left with only questions, echoes of a cold wind, and the image of a man falling through a moonless sky. Did he survive? And will we ever truly know the truth behind the man who pulled off the impossible escape? The greatest secret of all is not a mystery of what happened, but a mystery of who D.B Cooper was. If you were captivated by this story, please like this video and share it with others who love a good mystery. And don't forget to subscribe to Cinematic Dark Tales so you never miss our next video.